Welcome to today's evening lecture series. This presentation is being recorded. If you have any questions for the speaker, please wait till after the presentation is over and the question and answer session begins. If you need to ask a question, please type in your questions in the chat function, and I will do my best to relay the question to our speaker at an appropriate time. Alternatively, you can also use the raise your hand function. If you know where that resides on Zoom, you can use that and I will know that you have a question to ask and I will ask you to speak out your question. Tonight's lecture is Exploring and Birding Puerto Rico, and it's being presented by Matt Felperin, a DC area local raised in Takoma Park, Maryland. He is the roving naturalist with NOAA Parks, the regional park system of Northern Virginia. Matt has always been drawn to nature and has been sharing his findings with anyone within earshot since his days as a child looking for salamanders and crayfish in nearby Sligo Creek. He truly treasures the Chesapeake Bay and has enjoyed fieldwork and naturalist programs in several types of habitat within the Chesapeake watershed, and credits working under naturalist Greg Kearns for truly sparking his love of birds. As the NOAA Park's roving naturalist, Matt leads environmental education and recreation programs such as bird walks and kayak tours for the public. He views his wildlife photography work as one of the most useful tools to connect people with nature. As part of this presentation, Matt has also shared, and I think I'm going to go there in a second. Matt has also shared a trip report that he has created that will give everybody a look at all the places that the group that he's going to discuss today birded. So you can see my screen right now, and I will share this link with you in the chat window. So you can look at it right now, or you can look at it after this presentation is over. This link will get you to this page, which is a trip report that shows all the checklists, 37 checklists that the group created across the entire island. So you can see exactly where they birded. You can see all the species observed, and as well as any photographs that are attached to any of these eBird checklists. Feel free to look at this at any time, but the link is in the chat window. If anybody misses it and wants it, you're free to email me later, and I can get you this link via email too. So lots of ways to share this information. I think it's a pretty nifty tool that eBird allows you to do this and kind of commingle a whole series of checklists into a very easy to share resource for viewing by everybody. So we're just going to wait for Matt to get on the call. I mean, he's on the call, but we're just going to wait for him to.
I am ready when you are.
All right. Okay. So I will stop sharing, Matt, and you have the stage.
Cool. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me today and sharing my amazing Puerto Rico experience. I was very lucky to be able to go to Puerto Rico with my girlfriend and a few birding buddies from Northern Virginia. I kind of have like a few groupies as the NOVA Parks roving naturalist. Many of them are senior women. And there was a few that weren't comfortable going to their planned trip due to COVID, even though I will say Puerto Rico is very good for, they are very careful about COVID down there. So I was lucky to be able to go for free, and I took full advantage of going and got a ton of media, mostly photos, but videos as well, not just of the wildlife, but of the culture. We were mostly just like, in the wild for a good part of the trip, but definitely enjoyed lots of food and music and scenery. And it's an amazing place, and I highly recommend going. Obviously, we only have a short time tonight, so I will say that if you have any more questions following the presentation and you're planning on possibly going to Puerto Rico yourself, I highly recommend just getting in touch with me, and I'm happy to share more details about it. And Neville was kind enough to share with you my trip report from Puerto Rico that I put together of all the checklists that we did. Please feel free to follow along with the presentation with that. If it's easy enough for you, it's all dated. That has a lot of the media in it as well. So you'll see checklists, you'll see media to help you identify the different bird species. And again, please feel free to stop me along the way if you'd like. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. The cover photo I chose was, I mean, it's my favorite bird of the trip was the Puerto Rican toady. And there are different species of toady. They're related to kingfishers, actually, which is kind of surprising because they don't particularly hang out near water. They're kind of like little tiny forest kingfishers, basically. And each area in the Caribbean has their own species. So Puerto Rico has their own species of toady. And I found that the best place for them was in El Yunque rainforest, which we'll talk a little bit about later on, but this was my favorite photo of the trip, so I had to have that as the cover. So let's go ahead and dive in here. We're going to do things chronologically, so you'll see a mix of cell phone pictures as well as camera photos of wildlife. It's kind of all mixed in there chronologically. So we'll start with day one, January 14th, 2022. Flying into Puerto Rico, obviously look out the window and the water's absolutely gorgeous. I actually did not do any swimming in the Caribbean or in the ocean aside for one night for the bioluminescent swim, which is unlike me. I'm very much a swimmer. I love to be in the ocean or any kind of body of water. But this was a business trip basically to catch all the endemics. Puerto Rico has 17 endemics, 18 if you include one, and I'll go into the endemics as we go on as well. But there's a lot of birds to see. So here's flying into Puerto Rico again, absolutely gorgeous. Getting into San Juan, I at least had to get my feet in the water right away. As soon as my girlfriend got in separately, we took a lift to a really cool neighborhood in San Juan. Walked around open air market to sample some fine food and drink opportunities and get our feet in the water, which was absolutely awesome. The sunset was just absolutely breathtaking. I think it was the best way to spend our first few hours because we didn't have much time on our first day, so it was pretty much this. But I think we spent it wisely. Absolutely gorgeous sunset over San Juan, and some cool local art and some food. We've got some fish on mofongo, which is the kind of the national dish or the island dish of Puerto Rico. It's kind of any kind of meat or vegetable that's mixed in that's on top of kind of like a mix of cassava and plantains with sauce. And so that's the main starch would be the plantains and the cassava. And then you'll have a meat or other vegetable with it. Really good way to start off. So again, not much time the first day. So we'll go into day two. Very early in the morning, we stayed at the airport hotel just to make things easy. And then we are basically, so San Juan is on the north coast of Puerto Rico, facing the Atlantic Ocean. We made our way west to Manatí, which is a town just west of San Juan. It's a small enough island that you can really get around the entire island within a day or two even. Obviously you want more time than that, but it's small enough that it can be well explored on a short trip, as we did. Here's an invasive species, one of the first that we saw. This is a saffron finch, which is not a true finch either. I believe it's actually in the tanager family. If someone wants to correct me on that, I don't recall, but I do believe it is not an actual finch, but they are really pretty and they're very social birds. Here's a Venezuelan troupial. I believe they're also invasive or non-native, at least. They may not be strictly invasive, but they're definitely non-native. And this is a oriole species from South America that has done very well in Puerto Rico. And I believe this is the only one we actually saw. We heard them a few times, but this is the only shot that I got, only couple shots I got of that bird. And then, so here's our here's our tour guide. If you look to the left here, here's our fearless leader, Gabriel Lugo. He's very good at getting all the birds. It's always nice to have a local guide. I do feel like if you're ambitious enough, you can definitely tackle Puerto Rico on your own with a group without a guide. But it's obviously really nice to have one, and they know, they know people all around the island, so they have connections, and it's just, it's always nice to support the local economy, especially in Puerto Rico where they're hit by hurricanes a lot. Obviously, just got hit by one, so that was definitely a topic of the trip. But at the time of the visit, honestly, the island was looking pretty good. They were without, from the previous hurricanes, they were without power for I think 3 months, but they were doing pretty well by the time we were there, and I could just tell that they're very resilient people in Puerto Rico, but they definitely deserve some love from the rest of the country. Anyway, this was a random neighborhood in Manatee, Puerto Rico, just a suburb that he took us to, and it just looks like some neighborhood, but we got a lot of good birds here, as you will see. As soon as we got out of the van, oh yeah, there's dogs everywhere. Dogs running around in the neighborhood. And so we have the Antillean mango, which we got like pretty much right away, which was very awesome. And it strutted its stuff for us and fanned out its tail, showing that beautiful purple color. And I think we only had a few Antillean mangoes during the trip, so this was my best shot at one. But really nice to get a beautiful new hummingbird. As someone who has not explored the Caribbean, when you first get there, it's like everywhere you look, it's like lifer, lifer, lifer. So you just kind of stop saying it, and we felt that pretty much right away with the first two stops. Here is one of the endemics. This is the Puerto Rican woodpecker, and it was quite a distance. So not all of these photos are definitely what I would consider like my top quality shots, but at the same time, a lot of times I just wanted to document as many different species as I could. So, I hold myself to pretty high standards, so I was not able to get the best shots of everything, but again, I just really wanted to document as much as I could. So here again is the Puerto Rican woodpecker, and you can see there's a tree cavity that it's on right now. Here's a black-faced brassquit. There were a lot of these guys little flitting around the van as soon as we got out up in the brush. And another endemic here, we have the Puerto Rican oriole, and there was actually a family of these birds hanging out in the neighborhood, and I'm sure that the locals probably thought we were nuts, just kind of walking around with our optics and our cameras taking pictures in their front lawn. But Gabriel was there, so obviously he knows people there, so that was definitely helpful, because I'm sure we probably looked pretty silly. But yeah, here's the Puerto Rican oriole, which is another endemic. So I think we hit. We'll recap at the end. This is, if you're catching along with the checklist, this should be. Let's see where we're at. This is Barceloneta Pueblo. So Barceloneta, Puerto Rico, is the town. And that's where we're at in the checklist here. And then we got many endemics at this stop. And this was the first Puerto Rican toady that we had. And this one, we stayed for a little while. Gabrielle knew that we would definitely get more toadies, but just in case, we definitely spent probably about 15 minutes tracking this one down. And I'm glad we did, even though we did end up getting some good looks at them as well later. And so you'll notice the eye color is the iris of this bird is blue. I believe males have the blue eye and females have the brown eye, from what I recall. I did forget a few things along the way. But again, you will see there's more photos of the toady. And then they also have kind of like a pinkish breast, a little bit, mostly white, a little pinkish, and then they have some yellow under the tail here. And we have a Puerto Rican lizard cuckoo. And I also picked up another lifer cuckoo as around the same time as the lizard cuckoo, the mangrove cuckoo, which I had not seen before either. And so again, the Puerto Rican lizard cuckoo, we only got, I think I think it was just here. No. We had my girlfriend and I, when we had our solo trip to El Yunque on the last day, we got another lizard cuckoo, but they weren't as frequent as I would have imagined. But just really excited to see one in the open. As you all know, cuckoos can be pretty secretive. While they're very loud, seldom seen in the open like this. So that was nice. This one was kind of flying across the street a few times. And again, please feel free to stop me at any point along the way. I'm trying to get through things quickly just because there's so many slides. But again, like if there's something that you'll forget, definitely feel free to stop me at any time. Here we have a gray kingbird. This is one of the most common birds on the island. They're less frequent in the United States. I, had spent a lot of time in the Tampa area looking for them a couple of years ago because I have family in the Tampa area. So a lot harder to find in the US, but you don't have to try in Puerto Rico. They are everywhere. They really are. And obviously, you'll see them perched a lot on power lines, etc., looking for insects to hunt. And we have some sort of anole, which is a type of lizard. Obviously, they're pretty common in the Caribbean as well. And anyone who's been to Florida, it's kind of the same idea. You see little lizards running around, but everybody deserved to be documented. So I do think I did put this through INAT, but it is some sort of anole. I just don't remember the exact species, but it was peeking up to say hello. Okay, so that was the end of that stop, and I believe so. We had, let's go over the endemics. Just that one stop alone, we had Puerto Rican oriole. That's one. Puerto Rican toady, Puerto Rican woodpecker, Puerto Rican lizard cuckoo. So that was 4 endemics at this one location, which is pretty nice. Again, we have 17 total for the island. Here we have the loggerhead kingbird. Hold on one second. Just getting back to my trip report here. Yeah, so this is the loggerhead kingbird. It looks kind of similar to the gray kingbird. Bigger head and much larger, thicker bill. And this one was making a nest near a bunch of power lines. And so this is, looking at the checklist, this was, we're on our way down. This is in Arecibo. And here's it flying with some nesting material. We didn't get to see a ton of loggerhead kingbirds. Again, gray kingbirds were everywhere, but you'd have one loggerhead kingbird for every 70 gray kingbirds. And here's some of the landscape around us here. There's giant limestone hills in this area of Puerto Rico, which was unique, and it was good for farming in this area. And it's kind of similar to a few other islands in the Caribbean. I think Puerto Rico and Cuba especially, these interesting porous limestone hills, which just looked really cool to me. And we had there's a little rural pond, and here's a least grebe. This is the first one I've ever seen. I saw them again in South Texas. This is the first one I've seen. And, I just think they're absolutely adorable with those little golden eyes. And one more bird that was in that little pond was the white-cheeked pintail. We had seen a few of those elsewhere, but not as good looks as this little rural pond. And now we're making our way west. So this is kind of like the northwest shore of Puerto Rico, again facing north, the Atlantic Ocean. This is Quebradillas. And this is the spot that we went to look for the white-tailed tropic bird, which you see here. And trust me, this was taken at quite the distance. It's at least a few hundred yards off, but I was just so thrilled to see it. It's the first and only tropic bird that I've ever seen. So I was absolutely elated. They look very tern-like, but they're actually not in the tern family. I forgot their closest relatives, but again, they're not closely related to terns, even though they look very similar. Again, one of my favorite things about birding is the convergent evolution, where you have birds that look like they should be related, but they're not anywhere close, or there's birds that are related that don't look anything like each other. So again, tropic birds are interesting to me in that sense. Cool long tails as well. So it was fun watching these guys fly around out in the over the ocean, very far from us though. And here we have a pearly-eyed thrasher. Tough to get a shot of this. This was in some pretty dense brush at that very same spot. And they're pretty aggressive birds. And we only seen a couple of them, but yeah, they were pretty aggressive around other species. And then just driving along the highways, lots of cool murals. There's the lizard cuckoo on the. I took the shot of this one as we were driving by because of the because of some of the animals and just the beautiful artwork here. But anyway, here's the Puerto Rican lizard cuckoo and the Puerto Rican woodpecker on here, which I thought was really neat. And oh, here's the Puerto Rican owl. I think there's one more. I can't tell exactly what that. I think that might be a spindalis, Puerto Rican spindalis. But that was cool to snap a shot of this mural or this mosaic kind of mural as we were driving by. Back to the hotel, and even in the main town of Manatee, there's chickens running around everywhere. And here's a sequence of my best photos of a banana quit. We just got back to the hotel. We're checking in, relax time. But of course, I need to get some good shots of anything around. So while everyone else is kind of resting and relaxing before dinner, I'm out there furiously trying to find anything to photograph right outside this urban hotel next to a casino. There's like a big, it's like, it's just like, imagine a Arundel Mills. Okay. It's like a Arundel Mills, but there's, in the Caribbean. So there's still cool stuff, even though you're in an urban parking lot. So here is again, banana quit, very small bird that is very distracting because it makes you think it could be something else, kind of like the red-eyed vireo of the warbler when you're trying to find warblers and it ends up being a red-eyed vireo. So kind of like, false warblers in that sense. Very active, very cute, very common, hard to get shots of. So I was really happy with this sequence here. And again, here's the banana quit. So easily my best photos of that species. Here is the most common bird of Puerto Rico. This is the greater Antillean grackle. And they're even more common than the gray kingbirds. But yeah, so everywhere you go, if you go to Puerto Rico and you do not see a greater Antillean grackle or a gray kingbird, I would not have believed that you went to Puerto Rico, even if you weren't even going for birding or even if you were going for a day. Like, these birds are everywhere, but still had to be documented. Here we have a mating display of a white-winged dove fanning its tail. And again, this isn't like in the jungle here. This is in a bush right next to a big parking lot on the median, like near a highway. But here, your white-winged dove, another black-faced grass quit, as you can see. And I do believe they are also in the tanager family, the grass quits. So, and also, by the way, I'm going to mention a few tanagers. Just know that the tanagers that you may be familiar with here in the United States are not related to these tanagers. Our tanagers are actually in the cardinal family, and they are not true tanagers. So they're all cardinals. So scarlet tanager, summer tanager, western tanager, all these tanagers that we have in the United States are not actual tanagers, but the grass quit is. And here we have a Puerto Rican spindalis. This is another endemic bird. I love the striking black and white contrast on the head and then that yellow breast. I love the way that this bird looks. Pretty neat. And this was another one of the next one here. This shows the bird's whole body, but this next one is actually my favorite photo of this species and that I've taken, and probably my second or third favorite of the trip. I just loved that background. And so you would never guess what the background is. Remember, this is in a shopping center. If you didn't know that context, you'd think it was like some volcano, like there's like really cool black and red in the background, but that's actually a sign for a Longhorn Steakhouse. So there's your spoiler. for this one, but I thought it made for a really neat background for this bird. It looks really cool. Here's some mofongo again. So got some beef and some mofongo. Remember, that's kind of like mashed up plantains and cassava, and it's kind of like I said, the island dish. And then in the background, you can see we're going through our birds of the day. So we did not really, we did everything by hand at the end of the day, and then Gabriel, before he went to bed, would load everything in eBird. And at the very end of the trip is when I compiled all of the checklists into the trip report. I hope that you guys are following along with that, or if not, that you take a look later, because I think that could be extremely helpful if you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico yourself. We went on an adventure after dinner, and so we were on a trek for the Puerto Rican owl. Saw some cool butterflies that were resting along the way. Because it took a while to track down that owl, but we did finally find it. A few of the participants were a little grumpy because they wanted to go to bed. They were a little older, but we did end up getting the birds, and they were happy in the end. So here is the Puerto Rican owl, and it used to be called the Puerto Rican screech owl, but it is not a true screech owl. I will play the song for you. So let's pull that out. Puerto Rican owl. Here we go. So I'm just going to play it on my phone, so I hope it comes through the audio okay. So it does sound very similar to the trill call of an eastern screech owl, actually. So it does sound very similar, but it is not a true screech owl. They are very tiny, though, and we're very happy to see one. After that, we called it a night, and so here's one calling. And so we got to look at this one for probably maybe 2 minutes before it flew off. And again, I think we spent we were walking around in circles for I swear it was at least an hour, back and forth, trying to chase them down because we would hear them calling from opposite ends, and finally we were lucky enough to spot it. So that was nice. All right, day 3. This was our trek into the let's see where, I'm trying to remember exactly. Let's see, but this was for the Puerto Rican parrot. And so this was, Rio Abajo. Rio Abajo is the location where you're really the only place where you can go to find the critically endangered Puerto Rican parrot, which luckily has a very successful reintroduction program. A lot of money is going into it. So there are a lot of birds that are in captivity that are being, that are being raised to release. This was not actually the historic site for this bird. Actually, they used to be more numerous in the El Yunque rainforest, but they did not take too well to reintroduction there. So people think to go there to see them because that's where they were historically found the most frequently, but it seems to be that the population is taking hold much stronger in Rio Abajo. So this is again in more western Puerto Rico, where El Yunque is in the east, but again this kind of higher elevation rain, kind of cloud forest is what they like. And so luckily we were able to see them. Here's us kind of walking up the trail, and just a beautiful early morning walk. We are going up a hill, so we got our workout in. It was we got our steps in, got our workout in, climbing up this big hill. It was well worth it. Here we have a red-legged thrush, one of the lifers I saw along the way here. Not an endemic bird to Puerto Rico. You can find them throughout the Caribbean. And here is the Puerto Rican parrot. Now, this is a sensitive species, so when we did post on eBird, it is hidden from output because of, again, the population is in critical need here. But then here's some fruits up here. They look like figs. I don't quite know what they are, but they were definitely, you could see the stained bills here. These birds were eating well, so it's good to see them out in the, out in their native habitat and getting plump and looking good. And each of them is fitted with a radio transmitter, which you can see hanging down on this one. And we see it flying away. You can see again, here's the transmitter hanging to it so that they can keep track of the population. So every wild bird is a released bird. There are no longer any like naturally occurring Puerto Rican parrots. But again, it's obviously the same bird. So hopefully with the reintroduction efforts, they should be able to stabilize on their own. Here's it flying away. Pretty cool. It was also really neat just to hear them. This was the first parrot species that I've ever seen. This like the first native naturally occurring parrot species that I've ever seen, because I've seen introduced species of parrots in both Florida and California and in Texas, but this was the first that like is where it's supposed to be, kind of flying around making noise with its friends and flying overhead. And I was like, wow, I'm in the tropics now. It was kind of just a surreal feeling. As a kid, I just loved parrots. I would go to the rainforest cafe with my family and see the macaws there and stuff. So I always loved parrots. And so to see the first native parrot was very exciting for me.
Hey, Matt, there's a question from Judith. Do you know how many parrots have been released?
I don't remember the number. I think there are at least like 100 or so currently in the wild now, and there are even more than that are in captivity. So I mean, yeah, if you look that up real quick, you should find it. I believe that information is out there. I think it's hovering. I think it's somewhere around 100 birds in the wild, maybe 150. So yeah, that could be something you could look up real quick. And Neville, if you wanted to look that up real quick and confirm with us, that'd be awesome. I bet you look it up in 2 seconds. But yeah, so looking up, so this is where we would see them flying overhead, and some of these trees can get pretty tall, so it was tough to get a good angle to photograph them because they'd be in the high canopy. But I did get lucky and get some good shots. And just to be here on Puerto Rico and honestly, I didn't even know I was going on this trip until 2 weeks before the trip, because like I said, I got gifted the trip other than the flight, which I paid for. But it was just surreal to me to be here, to be on this island with this beautiful country and terrain and lush rainforest. Pretty just incredible place to be. And I believe this is an Antillean peewee. It's like interesting because like right after the trip, it was easy to remember all these birds, but then you kind of forget them. But yeah, I do believe this is an Antillean peewee, so not an endemic, but still a cool little flycatcher.
Matt, here's what Google tells me.
Sure.
I think 77 Puerto Rican parrots were released into the mountainous rainforest, and I think there's an estimated 540 that remained as of August 2018.
Those 540 in the wild or in captivity?
463 captive and 77 parrots that have been released. So I think that adds up to 540.
Wow. Incredible. So again, this is the place to go to see them, and hopefully, if you do go, you'll get to at least hear them and see them and get a glimpse of them flying over. But remember, like again, they're in such few number that it's just it's amazing to be able to see them. I was fully expecting to not get a chance to see them, maybe if we're lucky to hear them. So to see what we saw was an incredible gift, and probably one of the more special moments of the trip as a whole. And then here again, I believe this is also lesser Antillean peewee. And again, just seeing the sun come through the dense forest. I got a cool shot of a sunburst of the light coming through. And here's a video I wanted to share, so make sure you have your sound up for this. This is a bird I was not able to photograph, but luckily we were able to see it, glimpses of it, and to hear it. And this is the Puerto Rican vireo. Excellent. And so then from there, we went to Gabriel's friend's house, and he's got a hummingbird feeder set up where it is chaos and warfare between all the hummingbirds. I've never really seen anything like that. I haven't been to Arizona for birding, so I haven't seen what it can be like there. But in the tropics, it's just insane with how many hummingbirds can come by with just a few feeders up, and how aggressive they are. I've obviously seen aggressive hummingbirds, but this was definitely a highlight for me. So this is a green mango. The majority of these are all, I believe. There's one more of a different species, but most of them are green mango. And so here's more green mango. The tongue sticking out. I just love the poses that they would make. It was just really fun it's a fun challenge to photograph them with how fast they'd move and how quickly they'd leave their perches. But this was a fun time, and we got some nice snacks and some shade and relaxed time at his friend's place here. And here's some of the warfare chasing each other here. I was lucky to get a couple snaps of that fighting. And here's the other species. This is the Puerto Rican emerald, so a bit smaller than the mango. I think there was a handful of them there, but they were harder to get good photos of because they would be perching. Each of these birds individually kind of had their own little perch that they would hang out at, and so the emeralds just didn't really have any good light or anywhere that I could really get good shots of them. The mangoes all did, as you can see. But I was just happy to, again, document, even though it's really not a great shot, so at least document the different species here. Again, Puerto Rican emerald, and this is an endemic hummingbird. I believe the green mango and the Antillean mango are neither of those are endemic, but the Puerto Rican emerald is. Oh, dang it. Okay. Let me kind of move that up here a bit. There we go. Okay. I did take some video of the chaos here.
The emerald is around, so be ready.
And we're right there. Like, I mean, I'm taking this at a wide angle with my phone. So I mean, and this wasn't the like peak of the activity, but it was insane. At least get you a little glimpse of what we're working with here. And there were a lot of banana quits down below that were also really enjoying the feeders as well. And then from there, we drove south, and then we made it out to the southwest of Puerto Rico, which is called El Parguera. And let me pull up my maps here just to follow along here. So La Parguera on the southwestern coast of Puerto Rico, where there was a few target species, and these were some pretty cool salt flats out there. And so I think this was actually even further west than, this is Rojo Cabo. And so this is kind of the very southwest tip of Puerto Rico, where there's some salt flats, again, and some interesting species that we're looking for. And it's crazy to see not only the terrain change as you drive around Puerto Rico, but the climate. So remember that we passed through some pretty tall mountains. And so on the south end of Puerto Rico, it's very arid. Kind of reminds you of Southern California. So it is interesting how you get from like lush, humid rainforest, and then you get on the other side of the island on the south side, and it's very arid. So that alone was also interesting to me. You just cross over an hour or two, and you're in somewhere completely different. So Puerto Rico is a very interesting place where there's so much that you'll see that's different from each other, but it doesn't take long to get between anywhere. And so let's see. I believe this was an Alania. I want to say it's an Antillean. Was it a lesser Antillean Alania? Let me confirm with that. Again, sometimes forget a couple of the different birds, but it is a flycatcher species. I'm just trying to nail it down. Give me 1 second. So yeah, Caribbean Alania, and so this is a species of flycatcher. And so we were able to get a few new species on this little leg. And here is a white-crowned pigeon. It's my only shot of that bird of the trip. And here was a big deal. So this was back, this is an Alpargara. This is the yellow-shouldered blackbird. And I believe you can really only see them in the mangrove swamps in the southwest coast. So Alpargara is a pretty good spot to go to see them. It's probably the best place to go. So La Parguera, again, even just in the city, just in the mangroves along the coast there, is really where you want to go to get this species. And again, if anyone is interested in taking a trip to Puerto Rico, I'm happy to talk to them in more depth about where to go to find some of these endemics, especially if you're not looking to go with a guide. But we did see and or hear them frequently on this day that we were hanging out near the mangroves. And we also had this is what Gabrielle believed to be a hybrid between the Eurasian and African collared dove, which was cool. So I can't completely confirm that. I did list it as that, but he was confident in it. So this is a hybrid Eurasian and African collared dove. We're getting into the evening now. Our main target in this spot was the Puerto Rican nightjar, and I love nightjars. The nightjar family is just so cool to me. I love how they're distant relatives of the hummingbird. Just a really cool family of birds. So I was really excited for the Puerto Rican nightjar. And this is an Adelaide's warbler here. As we were waiting for it's pretty dark it's darker than it looks. I did brighten this up a bit. But yeah, it's pretty much hitting sunset, and we're waiting for the nightjar. So there's a few other animals kind of stirring about that we were looking at until the nightjars were active. So again, this is Adelaide's warbler, and it is considered by some to be an endemic. This is the 18th endemic. I believe they are present on a couple small islands off of Puerto Rico. So, it was kind of, I was told that there's 17, and then if you look it up, there's 18, and the Adelaide's is the 18th. Either way, I'm a warbler guy, so I was, thrilled to get a new warbler. Especially, remember, it's January, so to get singing warblers was very nice for me as a warbler guy, and they were very active and very vocal. So I got Adelaide's warbler. I have better shots of them as well. And another anole as we wait for the nightjar, and then here's the prize. So this is again kind of like the yellow-shouldered blackbird. If you want Puerto Rican nightjar, you need to go to the southwest, and they make themselves very obvious. They're very vocal. Issue is that you kind of have to bird along the road with the dense brush on the side of the road is where they're hanging out in, and so it can be a little dangerous. So we were kind of hanging out on the shoulder of the road, so it's not the safest. There are a few other spots you can go probably that might be a little bit safer, but there were, this was the most productive spot. And we heard them all night. So that was neat. And I'll play the call of the Puerto Rican nightjar for you. So if anyone's, I'm sure many of you are familiar with whippoorwills and chuck-wills widows, how, if you go to a spot where they make themselves very well known by their very loud songs, very repetitive and loud songs all night. And this bird was no different. So acted just like a nightjar that you'd be familiar with at home. Oh yeah, and I just love those, on the edge of the tail feathers here, these giant white spots, which are pretty neat. Okay, now we're into day 4. We start the day. We're going to the cloud forest this morning, and this is a scaly naped pigeon. This was shot from very far away. Gabrielle spotted these on a power line, probably like 100, 200 yards away. So we pulled over to get some better looks at them. So again, if you see, we heard these more often than we saw them. But if you look right here on the back of the neck, the nape of the bird, you can see why they're called a scaly naped pigeon. And here are the cloud forests of Puerto Rico. And let me find the exact name. I forgot the exact name of it. It is Americao. Yeah, so Maricao is the name of the cloud forest here. Again, this is still close to La Parguera, so still on the western end of Puerto Rico, and this is the best place to go for the elfin woods warbler, which we will get to in a second. But there's a lot of other goodies that we got to encounter here in the cloud forest. And this is an overlook tower, which was pretty cool to get a really nice view. And here's my girlfriend taking a picture. And some really cool old windows with some ferns growing over them. Just like the scenery and some of the architecture in Puerto Rico is just incredible. And just kind of how nature takes over a bit. So, yep, so here's that observation tower. Here we have the Puerto Rican tanager. This is another endemic. And so this is a true tanager here. And so note the kind of that grayish black dusky cap and the white chin and throat. And so they were pretty secretive. So it was nice to get a couple of those here in the cloud forest. So here's another look at one, Puerto Rican tanager. And this was one of the top birds that I really wanted to find. I'd say, honestly, this is top two. So number one for me was Puerto Rican parrot, of course, because it's critically endangered. The story behind that bird is incredible. So I really wanted that the most. And then as a warbler guy, an endemic warbler to Puerto Rico, I had to get it. So this is the elfin woods warbler, and they were really tough to see. So this is the best shot I was able to pull off. They do look kind of like black and white warblers. And this was actually a species that was not officially discovered or documented until, I believe, the 1970s. So a relatively recently discovered bird here. And they are they're called elfin woods warblers because they live in elfin woods habitat. And so you can look up more about the elfin woods habitat that supports them. So the best spots for them would be here in Maricao, as well as out east in the El Yunque rainforest, where I was lucky enough to get a glimpse of one and to hear one out there. So that was kind of a big deal. Gabriel took us here. This was a good spot that he knew of. But I was thrilled to be able to go on a hike in El Yunque, not specifically looking for elfin woods warbler. This is later on. And to get a glimpse of one and to hear one out there separately was pretty thrilling for me to kind of find my own, because Gabriel knew where these were in the cloud forest. And then we have the dang it, I gotta remember the name of this one. It's on here. I love the colors of these. Kind of look like a little bit like a parrot. This is, sorry, forgive me. I would forget about, oh, okay, yeah, the Antillean euphonia is what this one was. So the euphonia, as you can see, has this kind of blue color on the back of the head. It's got that lemon yellow breast and belly. And these we only had in kind of, this was kind of like a rural, the interesting thing about this kind of habitat here is that it was kind of like the cloud forest mixed with some rural agricultural land. And so you had a mix of open space, open area, as well as some dense woods. And so it was definitely attractive to a variety of bird species, including the Antillean euphonia here. And I just thought that they were just super bright and colorful. And here we have another endemic. This is the Puerto Rican flycatcher. And this was also in that same kind of habitat where you have that kind of mix of open area as well as dense forest edge habitat. And so that's what attracted birds like the Euphonia and the Puerto Rican flycatcher. And a knoll doing his mating display with the yellow throat patch. And I was down to document any type of animal, it wasn't just birds. Okay, here's a really cool sequence that I have of the gray kingbird here. Here's a takeoff. So I was watching it perch, and I knew that it was going to be going out to Sally for an insect sooner or later. So I was just trained right on the bird, ready for takeoff. And sure enough, it didn't disappoint with a beautiful spread wing display. And after, I didn't get it catching the wasp, but you see that it did catch one here. I have the sequence of it eating it. It dropped it. So you can see that's actually a string of saliva from the bill to the wasp here. And it does actually go back down and catch it midair. And so here's it with the wasp and trying to figure out how to eat this spicy little critter. And down the hatch, and there it goes. So again, gray kingbird, really fun sequence that I got to capture of the gray kingbird. And here we have a fiddler crab. Again, still kind of in the southwest here. So there's some salt flats out there and tons of fiddler crabs around, which I always enjoy. Reminds me of the Chesapeake Bay. And we have some anis here, and so we did stop by so that we could see them. And I'm trying to remember if they were groove billed or smooth billed. So give me a second as I recall. I believe they were groove billed anis. So we pulled over for them, and a few of us got out to look because that was a lifer for me. And while we were out there, not only did we get the anis, but we also got our best looks at Adelaide's warbler. But here's the ani flying away. And 1 second. No, it is smooth billed. Okay, it's smooth billed ani. So forgive me again. It's been a little while. Here's them. There was a group of them. They were very active, very social. I do believe they're actually in the cuckoo family, believe it or not. So I do believe anis are technically cuckoos. And here is, I believe this is the top rated photo on eBird in Puerto Rico, is my shot of Adelaide's warbler. And this guy came right out in the open in a bush in perfect light, right around where the anis were hanging out. So this was a huge bonus for me. As you saw before, I got an okay couple photos of the Adelaide's warbler before. So it was really exciting to be able to get a really high quality close photo of this warbler. As I mentioned, I'm a total warbler nut. So this was like this was one of the top 3 shots for me. The toady, this, and I guess that spindalis probably. I could say there's a bunch of photos that I came away with that I loved. So I'm lucky to be able to say that. And again, this Adelaide's warbler, I was in love. I was like just gushing over not just the photo, but just the experience of watching this bird flit around. Because there was another male around too. So they were pretty feisty over here in this shrub right along the edge of the road. Nice close up. Another shot of it. And so this was towards the end of the day. We are making our way up kind of this scrub and wetland area. And not everybody joined us because a few of our folks were tired, so they stayed back at the hotel, but a few of us ventured on. And we were really hoping for some interesting waterfowl that we did not get. And there's a relative of I'm trying to remember what it was. There was a relative of it was kind of like a ruddy duck. And it's really, really tough bird to get. And our guide, Gabriel, swore that he saw it, but we could not get on the bird. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Masked duck. Yeah, so he definitely felt confident about seeing a masked duck. They're very similar to ruddy ducks. Their little tail sticks back at the end. They're really, really tough diving ducks to spot because they're mostly nocturnal, and they spend a lot of the time during the day in dense cover. Really just difficult bird to see. So that was our main target for both this trip, and we actually went back to the same spot the next morning. And unfortunately, we did not get masked duck, but we got a few other duck species. It's just really cool habitat to explore. There is a Caribbean subspecies of the American kestrel down there, which we got to see flying around. And here's the male. We also had the female. So this pair of kestrels kept us company that evening. So it was fun to see them. And of course, got to show some iguanas, not native to Puerto Rico, introduced from Central and South America. But they were still fun to find some iguanas. And this was a much needed treat. Honestly, non-nature related, one of the best things about Puerto Rico is the fresh fruit. My God, nothing compares. When you get back from Puerto Rico, the fruit just ain't the same anymore. So I definitely loaded up on some smoothies, and this was just after a very long day with a lot of walking and in that heat of that open wetland area. It was just fantastic to come back and get a fresh fruit smoothie. That really, I felt like it added life to my lifetime. It's that good. So remember, the fruit is fantastic. So this evening we went to go swim where they had bioluminescent bay. So there are a type of dinoflagellates, so little algae, blue-green algae, that when you bump into them, they emit a light. It actually does kill them, but I mean, there's billions and billions of these little things. But it looks like you're swimming in a galaxy. So as you're swimming around, there's just like little stars around. We actually have similar dinoflagellates here in the Chesapeake Bay, actually, that are active in the summer. So if you go to a dock, you can find a similar experience by moving your hand in the water and seeing the stars. But this was just, the concentration of them here was just incredible. So here we have, again, down in La Parguera, some cool houseboats. We'll go through this quickly because I know we're running low on time. But just absolutely gorgeous night to go out and to kind of, here's a shot of the full moon, and just to be out there, to hear some birds at night while we're out there, heard some night jars and saw a black-crowned night heron fly over and swim in the stars. So it was a pretty incredible experience. Okay, and to day 5, so we'll try to get through this quickly. Here we have this is a clapper rail, but it's I believe it is a separate subspecies in the Caribbean of the clapper rail than what we have here. Yeah, I'm sure it is. So we have the Atlantic coast clapper rail. I think this is the Caribbean clapper here. So a few cool subspecies of birds that we're very familiar with in our area, as well as this yellow warbler. And the subspecies of the yellow warbler down there is called the golden warbler, and so they want that to be its own species. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but I think golden warbler would be pretty cool. So yeah, again, that is the golden subspecies of the yellow warbler. This is very close to where we were staying. This is early in the morning before we headed back out to the wetlands. Like I said, we were trying to get a few different waterfowl that were tough. So here again are those wetlands out there that we were exploring. Before I showed you a shot of kind of like the drier side of it. And so here's we're walking along a berm on this wetland. This is I think this is, I'm trying to remember the name. Let me go back to the name of this spot. It's a really cool place. Laguna Cartagena is the name of this wetland, and it can get pretty hot there, especially you're used to winter and you go there in January. The sun can be pretty brutal out there, so having that smoothie stand only a few miles away was pretty clutch. So while I didn't get a lot of shots here, there was still a lot of activity. Striated heron was a top target for us because this is kind of the spot where it's most often seen. We did not get it. I took a shot of a green heron and furiously tried to make it a striated heron, but fortunately no go. So it was a green heron. But there's tons of birds singing and lots of different types of rails, gallinules, and soras. So here's a sora. I love soras. I have a very close relationship with them. If any of you know me, I was lucky enough to work with Greg Kearns at Jug Bay at Patuxent River Park, banding soras. I still do on occasion, but I was doing that for a job in 2017. So this bird is very close to my heart. So it's cool to go down to Puerto Rico and get to see and hear soras everywhere. So that was neat. And this is a Puerto Rican slider, which is a species of aquatic turtle. And now we're on the move again, out heading east. So one of our longest drives of the trip. Landscape characters. Puerto Rico's got everything. Tiny. Good. Landed on that. Hold on. Okay, so this was the lechon. Sorry for any vegetarians out there. I apologize. But this was one of the most fantastic meals I've ever had. Oh my God. So there's a town in the east of Puerto Rico. I forgot. I think it's Salinas, I want to say, where it's the lechon capital of the world. And lechon is a preparation of pork, including the crispy skin here, which is all part of it. And so it's just like crispy pork, basically. And it's just absolutely fantastic. And then the beans and rice, as you can see here, I'm sorry if I'm making anybody hungry. Hope you guys all ate. And the freshest fried plantain I've ever had. My mouth is drooling right now. Just looking at this photo. I'm not even kidding. It seriously was that. I'm a big fan of Latin American cuisine. I grew up on Peruvian chicken, pollo a la brasa. Because I grew up in Silver Spring and Takoma Park, and there's a lot of it around there. So to go down there and have like just like the freshest experience at this like tiny little restaurant that was very crowded, that was like one of my favorite meals of all time. Anyway, back to the birds. So we went to this spot here in Caguas, Puerto Rico, looking for the plain pigeon. Not an endemic, but a difficult bird to get. And so we spent like 3 hours looking for, it's just kind of, it sounds like a joke that, we're in Puerto Rico, we're seeing some really cool tropical birds, and we spend so long looking for a bird called the plain pigeon. It's a punchline. And we didn't even get it. We put in so much work. Gabrielle was just determined to get us this pigeon. The sun was very hot, and some of the older ladies needed a break, so they went to the shade, and me and my girlfriend and Gabrielle are furiously looking for the plain pigeon on power lines. They would come down to the palms from the mountains to drink the dew on the palms. So you'd think that probably morning is probably the best time to go, because obviously you get the fresh morning dew. But we can't be at two places at once, so we had to go in the afternoon. But he was certain that you can get it in the afternoon. But it's interesting behavior as the plain pigeon descends into the valley from the mountains to drink the dew off of the leaves of the trees. So we did get another look at the Puerto Rican oriole while we were there, so that was nice. So no plain pigeon, but cool looks at the Puerto Rican oriole. And another anole, really nice look at some anoles, as well as some cool caterpillars. So there was plenty for us to distract ourselves with, although we didn't get our target bird. On to the next day, we're almost through. We stayed in San Juan that night, and so we're walking through Old San Juan. It's a really, really beautiful city to walk through, and it just couldn't have been a more perfect day. You can see a rainbow here. It's a great morning after a stormy night. It's beautiful to walk around Old San Juan. Here's the old city wall right here near the governor's mansion. Really cool fountain with the city wall on the right and the rainbow going through. You couldn't even plan that any better. And the interesting thing is the rainbow was actually over the Bacardi factory. So that's actually the Bacardi factory right over there. So it's quite a perfect Puerto Rican rainbow. And some cool sculptures outside the old city wall. Just beautiful landscapes here in San Juan. And we got a magnificent frigate bird fly over. So this was it was kind of like an old city tour, but don't you worry, we were definitely had our eyes open for some cool bird species. We got some non-native parrots as well as a few wintering warblers. I think it was a Cape May warbler I had down there in one of the trees. So there's still birds aplenty down there. Here's another look at the greater Antillean grackle. Again, they're everywhere, but still it's nice to get good shots of cool new birds. And a Caribbean martin, which I was happy to see. Also, I had a lifer cave swallow hanging out, flying around, catching insects. Beautiful cathedral. I forgot the exact name of this one, but it's one of the oldest in the Americas. I forgot the name of it, but it's absolutely gorgeous architecture in here. And another awesome dish. This was fresh fish. I don't remember the type of fish, but with mojo, which are the onions, and the amazing rice and beans and the fresh plantains. This is just like any cafe in San Juan. It's like a $6 dish for some fresh fish and awesome sides. So it's just like kind of like a deli. Go into a little diner or a deli in San Juan and get some really, really top-notch food for like almost nothing. So the food was definitely a favorite of mine. And walking through Old Town San Juan at night, it's all lit up. They're still celebrating Christmas. They celebrate Christmas like a month past Christmas. So it's definitely a party island. And here's the last day we'll get through. This was the day that my girlfriend and I went to El Yunque separate. So this was a separate trip. The rest of the group did something else. Our formal part of the tour was over. And so we decided to rent a car and head to El Yunque because it's, I mean, in my opinion, you can't go to Puerto Rico and not see El Yunque. It can get really crowded there. Now, we got very lucky, and it was really not that crowded at all. I thought it was going to be like, going to Shenandoah in the middle of fall foliage and just being just every lot is crowded and it's traffic everywhere. It was luckily not like that, and it was absolutely worth the trip. So just look at this vast, lush tropical rainforest and that terrain, just absolutely incredible. Another kind of observation tower out here, and a picture of my girlfriend and I at the top of the observation tower, just so you can see. I know we have our masks on, but I'm just absolutely thrilled to be in El Yunque. You can even see in the background, you can see the ocean way back there. You could see for miles. It was just incredible. And just really, this was a first for me to really be in true rainforest. Like I've been to Florida a million times, and Florida's pretty lush, but it does not compare. And to see the bromeliads coming out of the trees, so just like the vegetation was just insane. It's really, really cool to be in there and to just feel like you're swallowed by the rainforest. So here's a little bit more of the vegetation, a lot of mosses and interesting plants that I've yet to ID. Again, I was a big fan of these observation towers. They're really cool. So this is after a very long, this is a different observation tower. It was a long hike to get up there. It took most of our time. I didn't realize it was going to take that long, but it was worth the trip because now we're on high elevation and the clouds are going through right over our heads. Like we're in the clouds. And this is where I had seen, right outside of this observation tower is where I got a glimpse of another elfin woods warbler, which, as I had mentioned, really tough warbler to get. So that was quite the treat. Some neat flowers that I need to ID. And here is a black whiskered vireo, a lifer for me, but you can get rarely in Florida. And this is why they're called black whiskered vireos. And we have, again, my favorite shot of the trip, this Puerto Rican toady that's just like posing for me, This was in the trail that we took was the Mount Britain trail at the very end of El Yunque that you can drive to accessibly. And in the parking lot of that trailhead is where there were more toadies than I had seen during the entirety of the trip. I think we had like 6 or 7 of them flitting around all over the place, right in the woods, right next to the parking lot. So that's where I got my best shot of this bird of the trip, was next to a parking lot in El Yunque. And another endemic for you. I think we have most of them. There was a couple endemics I did not get photos of, but I got most of them. And here is the Puerto Rican bullfinch. And I love they're kind of look a little bit Oriole like. They've got that rusty, they kind of look like orchard Orioles kind of. An orchard Oriole meets a finch, and with this kind of rusty orange and jet black, and it was hanging on a branch here. I thought this was a cool shot. It was doing some acrobatics. A few butterflies that I need yet to ID. Looks like some sort of snout, I think, based on that kind of nose-like structure of the butterfly. And this was a grand prize. I can't believe I hadn't even mentioned this frog the entire time, because really, like, the national animal or the island animal of Puerto Rico are the coqui. There's different species of coqui, and coqui are named after the sound that they make. They sound like they're saying coqui, coqui, coqui. And there are several species of them. They are a type of tree frog, and they can be found in Puerto Rico, but also throughout the Caribbean and in South America. I think Central America as well. Tiny tree frogs that are no bigger than your thumbnail. So while they're very loud, they're very difficult to see. And I thought that it was going to be a lot easier to find them, but luckily enough, like, it was kind of a buzzer beater. On our way out of the rainforest, we were lucky enough to find one. I was looking around all over for these guys. So finally got a really nice looking one. Like I said, this animal is no larger than, this one might have been more like a ring fingernail. Like, it was really tiny. And here's another close-up of, I just really love this photo I took with my macro lens. It's absolutely amazing little critter. How loud they are for their size. It's kind of like the spring peepers of the Caribbean. So I was really ecstatic, and so was my girlfriend, because that was probably the top 3 priority for her, is seeing a coqui. So we heard them every night, and finally we were able to get good looks at one. I think this is the last slide. We have a rare orchid that was pointed out to us by a local naturalist. That's why it's always great to chat with the locals, and you never know who you'll run into or what they'll show you. And so just having a cool conversation with a local naturalist there, born and raised in Puerto Rico, and he was kind enough to show us this orchid, which I do not remember the name of, but I can, if anyone's interested, I can look it up and find out what it was. But it was so small. The flower here was incredibly tiny, hiding behind this leaf. So it was so easy to miss. Again, nature's beauty can come in very, very tiny packages, like the coqui and like this beautiful tiny little orchid. So all in all, it was a pretty amazing trip. So I know that we're at 8:25 now, and so hopefully you guys have stuck with me. I'm happy to go through some of the slides again, if any, for any questions that anyone has. So let's definitely feel free to open this up to questions, and if there's a particular slide that you would like me to go back to, I'm happy to go back to it. But yeah, feel free to share questions, comments, anything.
Does anybody have any questions for Matt? I don't see anything in the chat window. Matt, quick question. These photographs that you took, did you have a tripod with you, or did you just try and aim and stay steady?
For which photos in particular?
Pretty much any of these photographs, especially the ones that are super sharp.
No, I honestly, you know what? I do not believe I brought a tripod. No, most of my photos I do not use a tripod for. The macro shots were used with a flash setup. So for like the really tiny shots, like the coqui, I think that might be the only like macro photo that I even took. So that was taken with flash, which helps. So I don't need a tripod for that. Yeah, nothing was, everything else was handheld.
Interesting. There's a question on what camera do you use?
So I use a Canon R5, which is a mirrorless camera body. And my walk around lens with that is the Canon 100 to 400 millimeter Mark II. And so at 100 to 400 millimeters, I'm able to get, for wildlife, I can zoom out, I can zoom in, so I can get a variety of different things. It's easy for me to carry around. It is like fairly heavy, just depends on how much weight you can carry or feel comfortable carrying. Some people would rather have it on a tripod. I'd rather just walk around with it. And so I do have fairly heavy binoculars too. So with that combination, it can be a lot, but I deal with it because you got to do what you got to do. I was lucky enough to get a grant for a 600 millimeter prime. Those are like the really big ones. And for that, I do have a tripod for, but I'll only use a tripod on my typical setup if it's really low light situations. So if it's, as long as there's enough light for me to get some handheld shots, I'll keep it handheld.
And did you take a scope for this trip?
I didn't need to because Gabrielle had scopes. So packing space was critical. And so he had a few scopes that he had with him. So we only really needed the scopes for a couple locations, like with the tropic bird spot and in the wetlands, hoping for waterfowl. And there was another spot that I didn't have any pictures from where there was a lot of terns hanging out. And so we're hoping for some interesting tern species. But for the most part, a lot of this birding did not require scope.
Great. There's a comment from Christina. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question. How different are the bird populations across the Caribbean? Like, can you expect to see similar birds across most of those islands there, or are they
there are
very
definitely quite a few birds that you'll see on several islands, but because they are islands, you have non-migratory birds that have eventually split from similar species. So like that, the Adelaide's warbler, there are similar, I think it's called like the St. Lucia warbler, which is on St. Lucia, very, very, very similar to Adelaide's, but the populations have been isolated long enough that they are separate species. So that's how you can get some really neat endemics that are only able to be found on a very tiny area, because these populations have been isolated for so long. That's why if you're able to visit multiple Caribbean islands, you'll see species that are similar to each other that are different species, like those toadies. A lot of the toadies look very similar, but again, because of over time, they've become their own species. But yeah, I mean, you can, that's the thing, is like, you do need to kind of, if you're really into getting all the endemics, you got to go to Jamaica, you got to go to Cuba, you got to go to some of these other islands. But Puerto Rico is nice and easy because it is, it's an American, it's, hopefully it'll be a state soon, but it's, it's part of the United States. So it's easy to get down there. You don't need a passport. It's not that expensive. So I highly recommend Puerto Rico for that sense. But yeah, I am planning to go to some of the other islands as well.
Great. There's a comment and a question from Robin Todd. Wonderful photos and fascinating narrative. The question is, I missed the intro. Can you provide a link to the guide or the tour company?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll send out that info for you to share as well if you want to email the groups, because I know a few other people left as well. But it's Wildside Tours, Wildside Nature. And again, the tour guide is Gabrielle Lugo.
Gotcha.
And you kind of, to get him to get talkative, you kind of got to like push him a little to chat. But when it comes to the business side, I mean, he is very good. He's awesome at what he does. And again, having all that local knowledge is an incredible resource to have. So yeah, he is a nice guy, but he can be he's not always super talkative like during dinner or whatever. But so if you engage with him, he'll engage back.
Gotcha.
But he was really good at getting you on the birds.
There's two other questions. Were you bothered by any biting insects?
Honestly, I don't remember it being that bad at all. Nope. It can be way worse here. Go to Assateague in the summer, and it's worse than anything that we dealt with.
Is January considered summer, or is it spring?
No, that's still winter there.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's north of the equator.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And does endemic mean non-migrating?
Endemic means that you can only find that bird there. So there are plenty of non-migratory birds that are not endemic if it can be found in multiple places. So it's really just a geographic barrier term. So it's like, you can even say with whether or not a bird is endemic to Florida. And so obviously those are geographical lines that humans have created. But the idea is, yes, so you can say whether or not you can go anywhere else to see that bird. And if you can't, then it's considered endemic. So any of the endemic birds that I pointed out in the presentation, you have to go to Puerto Rico in order to see them. You cannot see them anywhere else. So yes, you would say that they are non-migratory, but that they are also endemic. So again, we have plenty of bird species that are here that are non-migratory, like the chickadee and cardinals and everything, but they can be found in other places, so they're not endemic. So it's very specific to, you can only find them there.
It's excellent. And a comment from Davey. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, Matt, thank you very much for sharing your adventure with us. This was wonderful. And thank you, everybody, for being here on this Zoom call to explore and board Puerto Rico virtually.